Hello, ladies, gentlemen, YouTubers, and anime fans. Welcome to the inaugural episode of OtakuVerse. My name is Sean, aka Anime Guru, and with me I have the wonderful hosts, Nineth,
Hey.
Bernsey,
What's up?
Joey,
Hello.
Ryan,
Hey.
and Brittany.
Hey.
So to start this podcast off, Nineth, why don't you tell us what you've been watching?
I've been watching. What have I been watching? I finished Fate Zero, but I think I said that in the other group, other intro thing. And today I've actually been watching Lock Horizon, the new episode, and that was interesting, to say the least. Got a lot of new details set out.
And what did you think about Fate Zero?
I liked it a lot, and let me think how to express that. I think it was. Oh shit! I need to remember things now.
Don't worry, if you can't think of anything off the top, it's fine. I mean, if you
No.
liked it, you liked it.
Yeah, but yeah, I like the characters. Saber is one of my favorites. I
Saber
think.
best waifu?
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah, the characters of Fate Zero are awesome. The animation's really good too.
I like the second opening as well.
That's a good opening.
Yeah. But
My
Saber
ringtone.
for the win. I think she's a badass.
All right, Bernsey, what have you been watching?
Well, I just finished The World Dominos the other week, so I really enjoyed that.
Oh yeah. What did you like about it?
It's really hard to put. It's really hard to know what I like about it. There's just so many good things in one.
No worries, I understand. Some things are just overwhelmingly good.
Yeah. All right, Joey, what have you been watching?
I've just caught up on Kill la Kill. All I can say is it's another episode of Kill la Kill, which is pretty fucking awesome because it's so over the top.
Kill la
And-
Kill is.
How is it comparing to Gurren Lagann?
I mean, they're both really over the top, and it's a lot less serious than Gurren Lagann, so. But also,
Okay.
I also started, I haven't quite finished yet just because I ran short on time. I started the movie Akira, and I gotta say, that shit's pretty interesting. I really like the concept behind it, and I also, for when it was made, it has incredible animation. But yeah, that's what I've been
It
watching.
definitely does. Oh, you've been watching that too?
Hmm?
No, never mind. Ryan, what have you been watching?
I've been watching Elfen Lied and Berserk, and I finished Kokoro Connect today.
I
do
love
you think about-
Berserk.
Berserk is good.
Amazing.
Did you watch the TV series or the movies?
I'm watching the TV series.
Series was great, but the endings.
It's sad because that show could have been so good, but the ending just
Mhm.
ah.
No.
They ended it right when the series, the
Don't
manga
ruin it
started
for
getting
Ryan
good.
if he hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm just saying that they ended it right when the manga started getting good.
Yeah.
She.
And what did you like about Elfen Lied? Or did you like it?
I'm watching it right now. I'm on episode 8. It's really violent and has lots of
That's
nudity.
for sure.
Elfen Lied is a show that just doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cute in ways. But yeah, I'm liking it so far.
Awesome. Yeah, it's not a series for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
I like the gore in Elfen Lied.
Yeah, it's good. You know,
I don't know what kind of stuff you're into, Nineth.
Yeah.
well, you know from like within like the first 2 minutes what the series is going to be about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that scene when she's just walking out and like chopping everyone up.
there will be more of that.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Well, Brittany, what have you been watching?
Okay, I just finished rewatching one of my favorite anime, Koi Kaze, today. And in fact, I think just watching it again made me even more sure that it's a masterpiece.
What
How
made
is
it
it a masterpiece? I've never seen it,
I-
so.
Well, okay. Without giving much away, because for people who haven't seen it, and I guess that's a lot of people.
That's me.
Okay. It deals with a really controversial subject, a societal concept in such a sympathetic way, and you get to know the characters really well, and it deals with it in a realistic way, which a lot of anime that I've seen that deal with this topic use it more as in a joking, almost fan servicey type of way. And this blows it out of proportion. The music is re-listenable. I have the soundtrack, and the animation itself. Some people argue that it isn't top notch. For me, because that manga was like one of the first manga I ever bought in Japanese. I think it's pretty consistent with the art style. And I don't know, in general, it's just, there's absolutely nothing wrong I can say about it. Unless you're, like, squeamish about the subject that's being discussed. Because I know a lot of people watched it
That's
who
true.
were squeamish about it and said they didn't like it at all. So, it's up to you.
It's definitely not for everybody.
Sounds
I mean, I know what it's about, but
deep.
I know it's not for everyone. Joey, wasn't there something else you were watching too?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, yeah, I just finished Serial Experiments Lain for the first time, and god damn.
Well, what did you think about it?
It's so symbolic and artistically driven, wow. It's a little hard to follow, but my god, if you can, like, just look into what that show has to offer, it's mind-blowing.
Well, I'm interested in hearing what you actually think happened in the series because it's so ambiguous that I'm pretty sure everyone has a completely different series, the different theory on what's going on. So, Joey, why don't you tell me what you actually thought happened in the series?
Alright, well, I guess we should give a warning that if people
Oh yeah,
haven't seen
spoiler
Serial
warning.
Experiments Lain, this is going to be a very
Red flag.
spoiler-heavy episode. So, I advise you go watch Serial Experiments Lain. If you
And then come
haven't.
back.
Or you can just listen to us and have it ruined for you. I don't care. Anyways, what I think, alright. Are you just asking about the ending specifically, or what goes on in the series?
Just what you actually thought happened because it's like every episode it like throws
Yeah, it throws
the
something.
theory away,
Yeah.
and it's so what do you actually think the story
The
was?
way I see it was The Wired was just, something that is completely ordinary. It's just a network, and that there were people who wanted to try and connect that network as if it were some other plane of existence. And people, like that one guy, I don't remember the guy who ends up being the god of The Wired. Ends up,
Eri
yeah,
Misami?
Eri, or whatever his name is. Like, he's one of those people that, really drived for it and did something completely ridiculous. And the fact that Lane is, when they said that Lane wasn't, like, a real thing, I was confused as hell.
Mhm.
And, like, I don't know, it's really hard to explain. Like, I thought, like, that something crazy like Lane not existing would happen. But, like, what I got out of it was that Lane had a more human side to her than, like, what Irie wanted when he created her.
Yeah.
And, like, that's especially driven because of her connection with Arisu. And, like, the fact that her immediate disregard of him completely prevents him from being able to, exist as a godlike figure
Mhm.
is what I saw. I mean, it's like she said in the episode where she first meets him, you know, he said as long as he has one follower, then he can still be God.
Yeah.
And Lain denying that does that, and then she sees what everything she's tried to do with her power that she doesn't really necessarily understand. Like when she resets everything, or when she did things to alter memories, then she actually, like, you know, resets everything and removes everybody from their minds. That's what I saw. Like, the only thing that really threw off is her showing up at the very end. Like, I wasn't sure what to make of that. So why don't you tell me what you thought? Sorry, my theory was a little all over the place. It's just really hard to explain in a nutshell
it definitely
what
is.
Lain is. But go ahead and tell me about your thoughts.
So you want to know what I thought? Okay,
Yes.
well...
You've been wanting to talk about this all freaking week.
I have, yeah. This is my third time watching it now, so I feel like I've gotten, like, every time I've watched it, I've gotten something different out of the series, which is what's so great about it. I've tried to tie everything in and do my best with it. Basically, you have the one episode where the spaceship crashes in Roswell, New Mexico, which is Area 51, and they find this alien technology, and the technology is used to create beginnings of the Wired. And the cool thing about that is that's actually based off of true events. I mean, there was no spaceship that crashed, but the person, I forget the professor's name, but he actually did create a global position. They did a lot of research for this series. They made a global positioning system or whatever, and they're saying that it was the beginning of the Wired, using that technology. After that, Eri Misami, he wants to take the Wired one step further. So he puts this new protocol in, which allows people to connect to the Wired without devices. But the company, Tachibana Labs, that he worked for, didn't like it, and they fired him. At which point he commits suicide and kills himself, and he puts himself into the Wired because of that protocol. And then you have the Kids Project.
Oh, I thought he was killed.
No, he killed himself.
He killed himself.
Oh.
And then you have the Kids Project, which was done by Dr. Hodgins. He was experimenting with kids' psi and trying to collect it together and make it stronger. But he realized that he was hurting the kids, and so he discontinued the project and scrapped it. But then one of the Knights members, I think one of the Knights members found it. Someone else found it. They didn't say who, but I'm thinking the Knights found it, and they're working for Eri Misami, and he has the project started up. And it's about this time that, see, I got that there was two different lanes. There was the Wired lane, and then there was the physical lane.
Yeah.
The Wired lane came about before the physical lane. She came into being. She was made from the collective conscience of all the humans in the world. And once the number of humans on Earth equaled the number of neurons in the brain, Wired lane was created. So now, Eri Misami wants to be able to control everyone. And he wants to use Wired lane to do it. But people can't see the Wired lane. So he uses the Psi project to create the Excella drug. And then uses Club Siberia as an experiment to see how it works. And if you realize, if you guys pick this up, the episode where the guy takes the Excella drug, he's like tripping and whatever, and he sees Lain at the club by herself in like these, different clothing than she normally wears, and that was supposed to be Wired lane. And then I'm assuming that he freaked out and she controlled him and made him go on the killing spree, and that was like an experiment. They were trying to see if they can control people using Wired lane. So now, the alien spaceship that crashed, they realize that what's going on with the Wired lane. So they send the physical lane down to Earth. They use Lane's parents are just proxies. They're not really real people, and that's why they're not allowed to help her. Like, she asks questions when she's asking are you really my parents? And those other questions she couldn't answer.
Yeah, it's very obvious that the parents aren't really, the parents.
Yeah.
That's one of
So-
the easier things to figure out.
I feel like her parents weren't allowed to help her. She had to figure out what her purpose was for herself. That's why, like, when she asked her father about the computer chip and what it was, he told her he doesn't know and, like, acted really weird about it. So now she's starting to figure out things. Oh, then the sister, near the end of the series, she acts like a fax machine. I think that the aliens were using her as a means of transmitting data to them so they could know what was going on Earth. And then, but at this point, finally, Eri tries to influence Lain. I feel like everything he says is a lie, and that's where some of the things were confusing me. At one point, like he's lying about everything. He tries to get Lain to kill herself.
Yeah, he makes it so she's, kind of willing to actually sacrifice herself.
Yeah, and he's trying to get her to kill herself, and she'll disappear. She won't really go into the wired. And she actually, believes him for a second until Alice comes over and, Alice convinces her that not to destroy her body. And, then she snaps Lain back into reality. Lain finally realizes, her purpose at the end, merges with Wired Lain, takes it out, and resets everything from the thing. That's what I got from the series. But what do you guys think? What did you guys think about the series?
I don't have much to say. I'm still confused as fuck about it.
That's an honestly understandable thing, because
Yeah.
Lain is a hard series to follow, and a lot of people I know who watched it were very turned off because they really had no idea what was going on.
It was just all over the place, and I didn't know where to start,
Yeah.
realizing things. I just remember I thought about the red dot on the, what are they called, the knights?
Men in Black.
Well, there's
Guys
the
who work for
Knights and there's the Men in
Tachibana.
Black.
Well, who's the guys with the red dots, like the
guys
glasses?
from Tachibana.
They're the Men
Yeah.
in Black.
Well,
That's what I call them.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Yeah, that's why I call him as well.
well, when Lain is in the club with her friends, and then a guy goes on the killing spree, and she starts walking towards him, you see the red dot on her
Yeah.
face, right? Well, a few episodes later, the Men in Black are looking through her window, and she looks through the window, and the red dot's on her face. And I thought maybe that had something to do with the killing spree, but I wasn't really sure what to make out of it.
I gotcha.
But other than that, I did not know what the fuck was going on.
I gotta say, if you did know what was going on, what Sean was talking about is a very interesting and well put together thing, better than
Yeah.
mine was.
I
I just
I
kind of
think-
thought, it seems like he knew what he was talking about. I just kind of threw together what I remembered from the series and tried to put it in coherent sentences, and it
Well, I
only worked
took
like for
notes.
20% of it.
This is my third time going through, so I actually took notes this time because
I
I was like,
gotcha.
I wanted to understand what was going on. But
I think it seems very reasonable what you've been saying about the anime. It seems possible, and I don't see any major holes in this theory you have put together.
I know there were a couple. I can't remember what they were off the top of my head right now, but Brittany, I haven't heard from you. What do you think about the series?
Well, actually, I kind of feel bad because I watched the series as well, but my theories aren't nearly as elaborate as any of the ones you
That's
guys have presented.
fine. Oh, that's no
What's
problem at all.
yours? Everyone's got different views.
And, well, to be honest, I personally have my own perspective about Eri because from what I got from, like, his dialogue and everything, especially more towards the beginning of the series, his goal was to help humanity kind of get out of its stagnant state, and it seemed that the Wired was a way to do that. And yet he kind of killed himself in order to make himself a god, so that kind of makes me think of Light Yagami from Death Note a bit, and that just makes him all the more interesting.
So you see
And-
him in a more heroic light.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, the other
Like-
what you
That's
meant,
actually a
and
really
then-
interesting look at it.
Yeah. I
But-
saw him as a villain. But
that being said, I don't really see anyone in the series. It's kind of more of a villain, really. It's hard. I have to go back and rewatch it
I feel like it's
because
hard to call them anyone a villain. Everybody just seems kind of like they're in a state of neutrality.
yeah, and they all have their own motives for doing what they do.
Yeah.
But I still think that out of them all, he would be the one who could be characterized as a villain the most.
I would say the boy who went ahead and shot the little girl up on the rooftop, thinking that she was like a monster from a video game, is the true villain. Shooting little kids.
Well, I think this would be a good point to bring up our main topic of this discussion, and that's symbolism and metaphors in anime.
Oh yeah, Lain is definitely a living example of symbolism. Let me tell
true.
you.
Like I picked up on one symbol. I don't know if you guys picked this up, but it seemed like every episode there were scenes of just showing power lines.
Yeah, that's
Almost
the same.
every episode they had that, and I got that as like trying to show that how connected the world was, how dependent we've become on our interconnectivity and our networking.
Yeah, I definitely see that with the fact that they use the connections and the wires in every episode and stuff like that.
But
By the way, I have a question.
What's up?
Can I ask it now?
Go for it.
go for it.
Okay, do you guys think that Serial Experiments Lain is in present time, or is it something that will happen in the future? And what about the population, do you think? Because if I remember correctly, they were talking about the world will be connected when the population will reach the same amount of that the brain has neurons. And I just want to know what you guys made of that, because that was something that just had been stuck with me since it was mentioned.
Well, since you're asking about what time it occurs, all I'm gonna say is present day. Present time. Sorry, that was really bad.
I actually think it's supposed to be still in the future. I think at the time it was supposed to be a couple years in the future, but I still don't think we've reached that point, because they're trying to say like people can connect without any devices to the internet, and we haven't reached that point. We have goggles that connect. We have sunglasses that connect to the internet, right? Is it Google glasses?
Google glasses.
Yeah, we have glasses. We're getting close to it, but I think it's still in the future.
Yeah, it does seem like a more future day kind of thing.
Even though it does say present day, present time, so it's kind of confusing. But
if we're going to go into other symbols, speaking of technology, I read up on this and kind of saw it myself, but somebody brought a very interesting light to it, is the kind of idea of dependence on technology. And a specific example somebody pointed out was how you have the guy who did the Excel or whatever it's called in the Siberia, and how crazy he was and how desperately he desired it. Kind of somebody pointed that out as kind of a link to, people's dependency on technology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I didn't think about that.
And it's not just that. That's his is like the more strong example of it. But Lane's father, quote unquote, is he's constantly wanting more computer parts and is so fascinated by the Navi and the main communication between Lane and Alice inside the class. I'm gonna mix between Alice and Arisu because they're not announced differently in both the Japanese and English versions.
Oh, you guys saw the dub?
I saw the subbed version.
I watched the dub.
I watched it on Funimation's website, so. But
And Arisu is called Alice in the dub. I didn't get.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
just something that English companies have to do. They say, "Oh, it sounds like somebody's saying something poorly in Japanese. Let's just make it sound English." I mean, Dragon Ball Z is a perfect example of that. But that's another story.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, they communicated using the little devices. Lane would send things trying to reassure Alice, and Alice would send things to her saying you should hang out with us, Like that was a main form of communication there. And so like there's just little examples between characters and stuff that show a need to use technology, and then there's more extreme examples where you have to become dependent upon it. And then now that I'm thinking about it, you have Eri, who is so dedicated to his technology that he becomes part of a network.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that? What do you think of this theme being
Actually,
conveyed?
I have another example using that. Lane's room. First, it starts off as a normal room, just bed and
And it slowly
little desk.
becomes swallowed by more
Yeah.
and more.
Slowly becomes more and more swallowed by the Navi and all the stuff that it needed to run it and everything. And
Yeah.
there's another example of that.
What
and
about you
water on the
guys?
floor. What?
What about you, Burns?
About-
You haven't said much.
Well, just going off what Sean said earlier, when they were in Siberia, needing the Accelera to sea lane. I have something written down here. But I did some research after I finished watching it, and someone has like a really good explanation for the entire series here.
I got you.
And it says Lane was the program that Eri and the Knights developed. And the next stage of development was to feed Lane into the human mind, feed the image of Lane into the human mind. So the Knights chose Siberia as a set-up local area connection, local area network for the brains within the cafe.
That's actually
And
really interesting.
And initially people needed the help of Accelera to have hallucinations of Lane, but after some more development and upgrading Lane and making her better, you didn't need to see that. She didn't need so you didn't need Accelera to see her anymore. As an example, in episode 2.
Yeah, I gotcha. That's actually though a really, really well thought out of it, because like where we have Sean's theory where Lane was actually a physical being sent from like the alien or whatever. This is the idea of Lane's existence being completely artificial and fed into their mind, and that's
Yeah.
a really interesting look at it. What about you, Ryan? What do you think?
Sorry, what was the question?
No, I was just talking about how my idea behind like a theme of technology and dependence and stuff is a thing in Lane. What is your thoughts on that? Do you see the symbolism? Because I know you're saying it's kind of like, whoa, what? But
I still have to go with that. I couldn't really figure out anything.
yeah,
I'd have to watch it again, but
that's fine. And like I said, it's hard to follow. But can you at least see where we're coming from?
oh yeah,
Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's one of those things.
it's
if you
making
have
a lot
someone-
more sense.
Yeah, it's nice though, because like, if you have somebody to talk about it and stuff, you can have so many different ways to look at it and put it
Mhm.
together. So
I
it
definitely
really
have
makes
to
it more
rewatch.
interesting discussion, especially with people who aren't too certain about what they've witnessed. But another theory I hear get
Also,
taught.
no, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Nineth. I'm sorry.
I would just say, also, as we progress into the series, the Lane, she sits in her room and she's covered in cables.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also, like, she symbolized how the internet and technology is, like, dragging us into itself, and how much
Ooh.
caught up in it we become. I think that's a good...
Yeah.
Yeah, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that scene. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I didn't pick up on that though.
When we first started talking, I asked a question about the shadows, and Sean had a good theory about that.
Oh, you know how the shadows look like they're like a mosaic kind of.
Yeah.
I took that as it was showing the blurred boundary between the physical world and the wired, because there would be times when she would walk into the shadows and she'd start hearing voices,
Yeah.
and people and she'd start having hallucinations. So I took that as it was physically on screen, visually showing you the blurred boundary between the two worlds.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to be honest, that there, now that I'm thinking about it, goes very well with the idea that Burnsy was talking about, how it was like artificially put into their minds.
Mm-hmm.
Also, don't remember if it was episode 10, where Lane encounters Chisa. I don't know how to pronounce her name. The girl who committed suicide in the first episode. When they talk right before, something comes from behind a pole and like walks in screen, and from behind that the girl comes, and I think that thing was like in the shadows. So I think it's really possible that the shadow shows the bloodlines between the wired and the real world.
Yeah.
Like, and because both Eri and Chisa or whatever are both dead, but still in the wired, and those kind of things just make sense. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Does anyone else have any examples? Brittany, I haven't heard from you in a while.
Even if it's just like a single moment or some sort of small thing you noticed that made you think about something in a larger scale. Did you have anything like that?
Well, I did. I mean, with a series like this, it's kind of impossible not to.
Yeah.
But I guess it was already something somebody mentioned already. But
That's fine. Go ahead and mention it again.
the way the world is connected with the telephone poles and everything, and how Lane was the only one able to hear everything that people were saying, and like even in the first episode when she tells everyone to shut up on the bus and they all look at her like, what? We didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just kind of for me, in a sense, The Wired wasn't just a network. It was like, how do I put this?
An alternate world?
No.
I
It's
always
more
saw
as
it
in
as-
like,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I almost interrupted you.
I'm sorry, it was more as in like, and I don't mean to say this, to quote Madoka here, but it is kind of like a metaphysical plane, where like, even the dead who have, or people who are rotting in the real world, it's kind of like where your conscious is. It's,
Okay.
What's interesting to note about like the whole concept of the Wired and people using it as a second plane of existence is when this show came out, I mean the internet was still a relatively new concept to people.
It's true.
So I can
It's true.
imagine being in that time period, watching that, and being terrified
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
whole concept of a network bringing things together. Like I'd completely forgotten, that when Lane was released, it was a long fucking time ago, and
It was like 96.
we're so used to the
97?
internet nowadays, as we feel like we have an understanding of it. And
Yeah, it's kind.
looking back to how it was viewed then, it makes it more interesting to think about it from that perspective. Like, could something like this actually, be another plane of existence? And I mean, even in nowadays terms, it's not actually there as a physical plane of existence, but people have, personal different identities online than they do in person. And it's almost
Very
like
true.
it's a network of connected people in a totally different sense, whether it's through like a social media site or even in like, I don't know, role-playing games that are online. You're totally different, totally existing in a different world.
I think it's kind of ironic how we're discussing the connection and Serial Experiments Lain and the Wired and all, while we're still in this. None of us has met each other in real life,
Yeah, we're
Interesting.
connected
It's true.
somehow through the
and
internet.
yeah, that's kind of ironic that we are discussing this while practicing it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's kind of
'Cause,
ironic. I
One of
think.
the earliest examples of symbolism I saw in Lane was, like I said, mentioning, the use of technology, the dependency upon it. I mean, the use of technology in our common daily lives is what made this thing possible. So,
Another symbol I picked up on was Lane, her bear costume or her bear pajamas that she had.
those things were cute, by the way.
I was just thinking she's exactly like every Tumblr user out there.
Yeah, like I saw Lane in her pajamas, I'm like, I just want to give her a hug.
But whenever she would have a talk with her parents, this is actually I looked this up. This was actually from an interview between Yasuyuki Ueda and who's the series creator, and Yoshitoshi Abe, who was the character designer. Those pajamas, she wore them as like a shield, kind of, when she would speak to her parents, which kind of shows her innocence in a way.
I totally didn't pay attention to that.
I didn't pick up on it either, but I got that from the interview.
And the fact that
I kind of wondered about that, but I couldn't make anything of it. So.
Well, now that you mention it like that, the fact that they use a bear is interesting, because the way it looks is it kind of just looks like a teddy bear, which is, kind of symbolic towards, like, innocence and, like, not knowing, and just, like, how a child would, cuddle up with a bear when they didn't know what was going on or was terrified. That's acting as, like, Lane's barrier to the like, of uncertainty and unknown.
Now you say that, also when she was buried in the cables in one of the last episodes, she cuddles at least two bears. So I think you're kind of right with that interpretation.
I'm trying to find the exact quote, but I can't find it.
No worries.
And then the other thing, here it is, yeah. Bear is not only a service to TV viewers, this is meaningful. She stands alone in the family, is a combat uniform when she opposes the family. She puts that on and goes, and when she does a serious consultation with her father, that protects her.
Huh.
So, yeah.
That's really cool.
A quote from Ueda. Also, another quote, actually a fan brings up, like, the true answer to Lane. And Ueda actually states that there is no true answer to Lane. Everyone's supposed to get something different from it. We don't expect the audience to feel the same way. That there wouldn't be just one answer for the audience, which I think is really cool. You're supposed to get something, different from it.
I know this is gonna sound like an extremely absurd thing to say, but the way you put that is kind of how I feel. I feel like Lane is like the scarlet letter of animes, I guess, is the best way to put it. It's so symbolic, and there's so many different ways you can look at it.
Mm-hmm.
That is so something you can just analyze like that.
While we're at that, to the fans out there who are watching this video, please, if you have a different opinion of what happens in Serial Experiments Lain, please leave that in the description. I'd like to hear your thoughts and comments.
Yes. Part of the podcast is also hearing other people's feedbacks and discussion.
But Lain isn't the only series that has symbols and metaphors in it. Do you guys have any ideas of any animes that you've seen that have metaphors and symbolism in them?
It's kind of hard to compare anything with as much metaphorical work as Lain does.
I don't think I've seen anything this symbolic.
The only one I've seen, actually I've seen two, but it was a long time ago, so I can't really comment too much on. But I've seen Penguin Drum and Paprika were both highly symbolic, and Satoshi Kon's Paranoia Agent. Those three of those were very, very symbolic series.
Tell me a little bit about the symbolic stuff you see in Paranoia Agent, because I know a lot of people who've seen it and really like it.
Paranoia Agent, it was another series I had to actually look up what actually happened at the end, because I'm gonna spoil it. It's gonna be hard to explain it without spoiling it.
Just do your best. If you have to spoil something, don't worry. We've already ruined Serial Experiments Lain for everyone, so...
Basically, so you got the main character. She's a character creator, but not for like an anime series. She creates this stuffed animal toy, and it explodes, and everyone has it. They have it, little pieces, little things hanging from their cell phones, stuffed animals. People are dressing up as it.
Yeah.
And it's huge. It's everywhere. And now she's under pressure to make a new one, and she can't seem to do it. And her to escape from that, she creates this. Her stress and fears manifest themselves into into reality basically, and it's kind of what happens. So it's like it shows what stress can do and how it destroys people's lives. I guess would be how
Yeah.
I would say it symbolizes that. Yeah, that's about it.
I just thought of something myself about animes that actually have symbolic things, because like the thing is with any form of media or art or whatever, as long as there's a style to it, people are going to interpret it one way or another. So there's symbolism in just about anything you say. But one thing I noticed myself in another series I watched, one of my favorite series is Kaiji. It's an anime about gambling, but the way it portrays like the stakes and stuff, I see it as symbolic towards like the state of human desperation, like when people are really desperate to get money or get out of a bad situation, people are willing to take absolutely absurd risks without paying attention to, the potential consequences. Because that's what I see with the gambles that are taken by the main character, Kaiji, when he goes into things. Like, for example, he goes into the first gamble in the series, which takes place on a boat, and it ends up being like a form of rock, paper, scissors with cards, but you have to have a certain amount of star badges for victory by the end of the night in order to like make a certain amount of money and get out of there. Because so like you could basically get in there and get enough money to clear your debts, which is why Kaiji was in there to begin with.
Yeah.
But the risk attached to it is you could lose money and survive, or you could lose your stars and end up being forced into a labor camp for the company that's, like secretly working this gamble. So,
oh wow.
It's a sign that people who are in really very dire situations will go to extremes like that to get somewhere. And I mean, I see that with people who come in at my store, like people who go to like the lottery or something, they buy every week, depend upon it, just eating away at their money to try and get that chance to make money. I see that in that series. I mean, it's obviously not like heavily symbolic, it's just the way it's conveyed came off to me like, wow, that's actually surprisingly deep.
Interesting. Very interesting. What about you guys, the other co-hosts in this podcast? What do you guys
Yeah,
think?
there's plenty of you guys. I know you've got something to say.
About
Even if it's
what?
just a small symbol, if it's not something like deep and
Of
meaningful, I can give you an example of one that's perfectly not meaningful if you want afterwards.
Symbols or metaphors in other anime besides Serial Experiments Lain?
I heard that the anime Boogiepop Phantom is similar to
Oh,
them.
yeah.
I haven't seen it, but
Oh, it is. Yeah, that's definitely a very metaphorical anime. It's also very confusing because the story is not told in a linear fashion. Have you guys seen Bakuno?
yes, I love that
Okay.
anime.
Well, you know how Bakuno, the episodes are out of order. They're not in
Yeah.
chronological order. It's the same thing with Boogiepop Phantom, and it's a lot of it's a lot of like single episode story arcs,
Yeah.
but they all relate to the overarching plot, and like so they're told you bounce back and forth. It's really confusing. But yeah, that was definitely a very metaphorical series, a very interesting series to watch too.
Mhm.
Actually, a funny fact, interesting fact about that is the original Boogiepop was a light novel series, and it was the first the first actual like light novel that started the whole light novel phase in Japan. Interesting
That's cool.
fact right there. But yeah, Nina, have you seen any symbols
No.
in any other anime? No.
Not that I can think of right off the top of my
That's
head.
fine. What about you, Burnsy?
Right off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything.
Well, I just thought of something myself. It's a lighter example, and it's an overall theme in the series. I'm sure plenty of you guys, including the people in the cast and whoever's watching, have seen. It's this kind of popular series. It's called Attack on Titan.
Uh-huh.
And
What's that?
A theme that's just constantly existing in that series is the theme of humanity, and how in order to overcome the worst things you have to be willing to sacrifice your humanity. And it's definitely present with all the characters who are, like, considered powerful or, survive the longest. They're the ones who are willing to sacrifice their comrades, willing to move forth, willing to, like, do ridiculous things. Like, if you want a symbol example, is in one episode, they're, doing their after their attempt to try and capture a female Titan, they try to bring the bodies back, but they can't. They're being dragged down by the weight. So the symbol of them throwing the bodies of the people they legitimately cared about is a symbol of dropping the humanity to survive and push forward.
Yep.
And that's what I see, and that's just a more modern example.
Have you guys have any of you guys seen the Garden of Words?
No.
I'm not really
No.
sure. That was
But yeah.
that was another movie that was very symbolic and metaphorical. One symbol I can think of and metaphor I can think of off the top of my head, the garden that the two main characters, I believe the boy's name was Taco. I forget the female's name, but they meet in the garden when it's raining. That's why it's Garden of Words. It takes place during the rainy season in Japan and Tokyo, and they're always meeting in this gazebo in a garden. Now the garden is in the center of Tokyo. It's kind of like a secret oasis in a giant city made by man, of machines and skyscrapers. It's like a little hidden secret oasis. And it kind of symbolizes the relationship of the two main characters because they don't know anything about each other. Their lives are secret from each other. All they know is they meet there at the thing and that's it. So it kind of symbolizes the relationship in a way.
Interesting. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. I know a commonly talked about, and you'll see it in a lot of different animes, a theme or symbol that's constantly there in a lot of different series I've heard of or seen myself, is the idea behind religion. Like, there seems to be a lot of animes that have that somewhere in them. And I'll even go back to Lain, for example. There's a lot of talk about religious religious symbolism in Lain. And I mean, it's kind of obvious when you see, God of the Wired, there's got to be some proposed theory about this, but like the way I see it is you've got like the people who are the knights who see somebody do something completely unbelievable, exist in another plane of existence, and so he gains followers through that, and they're willing to do some extreme stuff like mess with the wired and things like that. Like it's almost in a way a sign of like how religion can also like. I'm not saying trying to degrade religion. It's not a bad thing. It's like people who can go to such extremes with what they believe in.
Yeah.
Will begin to stop, considering...
Well, that's not only applies to religion.
That's true. I know. I'm just saying it's...
Yeah.
Another thing. It's the same lines of technology. People will go to extremes or become so consumed by it. Like, some people dedicate their whole lives to, praising the word. It's just an example. People in real life will dedicate their lives to praising God, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm totally okay with that. And it's kind of conveyed the same way with the knights in Serial Experiments Lain, because they're so dedicated to this cause or to Lain herself. Like, they see it as something superb. What do you guys think of that idea? Like, do you see some sort of religious connection? What about you, Burnsy?
Not so much a religious connection, but more of a just talking about symbolism in Death Note, in particular. I'm just looking at something up now. The apples are complex symbols, so they have a variety of meanings and different things. It can be wisdom, luxury, joy. In Greek mythology, apples appear like, as gods are eating them or something. So like this amazing fruit. So you see Ryuk eating apples all the time and having a love for apples.
It's not so much just religion as it is, like the supernatural, the surreal kind of themes too.
Well, going off of what Burnsy was saying with the apple, it actually makes sense if you think about it. And the apple was supposed to be the fruit of knowledge, the forbidden fruit of knowledge, and that kind of makes sense because now Light gets the Death Note, and it's like he's got this forbidden power that he shouldn't have, and he's being tempted by the Shinigami and by Ryuk, and that makes sense. I never picked that up, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. Like
concept.
I always knew like the apple was always used as a symbol for something, like generally wisdom, but I never made the connection in Death Note the way you just put it out there.
Yeah. I also have another series that's highly symbolic. It's called Haibane Renmei.
What is
I don't know. It's this series about this girl who wakes up and she doesn't know who she is or how she got there, and she's surrounded by all these creatures, and they're called Haibane. I believe I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but whatever. They're Haibane, whatever. And they look like humans, but they have wings. And you never remember how you got there. You just wake up one day and you're there in this world, and it deals with certain themes such as who am I and why am I here and stuff like that. Those are recurring themes in it, and it's definitely a symbolic series about those type of themes.
I just thought of a really interesting symbol that I can't even believe I didn't think of, because Burnsy just brought up Death Note shortly ago. I just maybe remember a theory or thought I had on it too. The Death Note itself is a symbol of this unique and superb power, and Light's granted it. But as the series progresses, Light becomes so consumed by it and goes out of his way to ensure, he can continue to use this power the way he wants. He goes so far as to kill his own father.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a symbol, that's a great power, and in the wrong hands, great power can corrupt even the most idealistic mind.
Very true.
I mean, that's very, even outside of anime, that's a pretty common topic in a lot of different things like literature and stuff too.
I can't believe I didn't think about this one, Ghost in the Shell.
What about Ghost in the Shell?
It tackling the issues of individuality, what makes me be a human, the soul, and which is called the ghost in this series, stuff like that. That's a highly metaphorical series as well. More symbolic of individuality and basically just, are we humans because we have bodies, or are we humans because of our souls?
Yeah, I always found that really interesting when I watched Ghost in the Shell, the first time. It was wow, this is surprisingly deep. The idea of the soul and stuff, Ghost being the symbol of it, is really, really interesting when you think about it.
Brittany.
Yeah.
Can you think of any series that you've seen that have metaphors or symbols?
Even if it's just I've said before, really small things, like what I pointed out in Attack on Titan. Is a great example.
It's a currently airing anime, and they kind of make the metaphor really obvious. But I am watching Nagi no Asukara, and there's this Fishni, yes. The skin that the sea people wear, I think Enna, what it's called?
Yeah, I think something like that.
Yeah, that allows them to live in the sea, and if they don't go back into the sea by a certain time, the Enna breaks. It just kind of reminds me of the Enna itself naturally is protecting them in the sea, but in my opinion, as I keep watching the series, it becomes more of a protective barrier to the society that they're about to face on land and the problems that they have with coping with it. And I don't know, and I just think that in general is pretty interesting. And I mean, I haven't even seen past episode 5, but I can't wait to see how it plays out.
No, and that's an interesting thing when you have an airing series and you get the early interpretations, like the early symbol ideas that you draw from it.
Mm.
But I've seen a much further than you, and I can say that it will still be even more evident the way you interpret it.
Mm.
Well, you know what, guys? I think it's about time we start wrapping this up now. You know.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys enjoyed the inaugural episode of OtakuVerse.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we filled their mind with more symbols than an Egyptian hieroglyph chart.
Show him down your throat. Yeah, my name is Sean, aka Anime Guru, and once again I have my wonderful co-hosts Ninith,
Heyo.
Joey,
Anime sucks. I love you guys.
right?
Fuck anime.
Hey, bye.
Bernsey,
See you later.
and Brittany.
Oni-chan.
Oh my
God.
No, Brittany.
You know, we probably just brought in a whole audience of really creepy people because you just did that.
hey, if they made it to the end of the video to hear that, then that's awesome.
Yeah, good for you guys being here still.
Want me to say it again?
No.
Okay.
And anyway, until next time, guys. See you later.